Hey everyone, we're in Fractal's Star Trek Bridge at Computex 2024. So they have a couple of cases that are really interesting mechanically. The cases we're going to be looking at are the Era 2, which is this one. Wood has come back for this. They also have on the far side of the room the Mood, which actually I don't know if anyone remembers this, but last year when we showed the Terra right around launch at also Computex, there was one shot looking through the window of the building, and this was off to the side. And that was our Easter egg. So we're gonna be talking about this case as well. This one's really interesting to me because it has a Torrent fan on the top. So it's a 180 by 38 mil fan. And the approach to airflow here is to basically intentionally block two sides to try and force all the air through the other two compartments. So definitely going to be talking about this one from a thermal perspective. There is a really slight modification of, I guess I'll call it a prototype of a North XL, but with back connect support. So that's really the only thing that has meaningfully changed here, where they've pushed the motherboard tray a little bit that way to accommodate the back connect for boards, and then that also has some impact on CPU cooler clearance, but it was the way to accommodate the cable. So other stuff Fractal has we won't spend as much time on, but one of them is this series of chairs. So they're calling this Refine, and it was directly pointed out to me that Fractal, I guess, was already working on these chairs when a couple years ago we ran the video about don't buy a gaming chair. And so this is more of an office chair. So we're starting off on at least better terms than if it were a gaming chair. That would be a disaster. And then over here, there is a headset, which we don't cover audio, not gonna spend any time on this. It's called the Scape. The thing I actually care about more, they are not shipping, which is this Raspberry Pi Mini North. And as I understand it, this is actually the same type of wood supply as on the North. And then you can see here, they've got the ports, and it's a mini MP3 player, basically. It's just for music. So this, I'm trying my best to convince Fractal to sell it, but probably that is where all the comments will come in. So do your worst. All right, let's get started. Before that, this video is brought to you by Thermal Grizzly's Aeronaut and Hydronaut thermal pastes. Aeronaut is Thermal Grizzly's entry-level thermal solution, marketed as resistant to curing and for long-term endurance. Hydronaut is Thermal Grizzly's next step up, targeted for overclocking and higher performance applications. We've used Hydronaut on a lot of our systems internally over the years. You can learn more at the link in the description below. Okay, so we'll start with the one that I care about the most. This is called the Mood, and the way this functions is actually pretty cool. So they're doing an almost, it's not like literally unibody, but kind of that idea where the panel pops out. This is the GPU side panel, and that side does not get covered with the fabric you see elsewhere. So that's just a mesh. We'll talk about that in a second. And then this slides up, which gives access to the interior chamber of the case. So the case is extremely light, first of all, or I'm just that strong. And the GPU mounts here, this is relatively limited space for the GPU, but it's got a PCIe Gen 4 riser that's included. You can see there's perforations here in the backside, or one of the sides of the power supply chamber. So that would allow flow through, if you have it, to go into the power supply fan, and then the power supply fan should align to eject up and out through the 180 that's in there. So to get ahead some of the comments, generally speaking, power supplies, when they're certified at 40 or 50 degrees Celsius. Cybernetics is a little more extensive with their certifications. 40 to 50 C is reasonable for most decent power supplies, which I'm only saying because sometimes when people see GPU exhaust getting pushed into a PSU, the instant concern is, but what about the heat? Normally, the power supplies can handle that because it's not like all of that heat is getting dumped straight in. Some of it does come out the sides as well. So anyway, that's how the power supply is oriented. There is this cable installed to run from the PSU down to this lower chamber where, actually I'll just pick it up again. So you can see this large space within the feet is kind of recessed here. So cable comes out here, it'll route through this gap in the feet, and then the video card display cable will also spit out down here. It's gonna be a little bit of a steep turn. We'd have to test it with a few to see if it matters, but if you use a super stiff display port or something, that's one of the, I don't know, marketing kind of super high-end ones. It might have a harder time with the curve, but we'll look at that when we get it. Actually, I think we might already have one. and it's coming out in June. So let's go through the rest of the design. The way this works thermally is what I thought was the coolest. So if you look in through the side here, this is a solid panel, and that obviously blocks air. The other side is also a solid panel, whereas this side ends up GPU, so the video card breathes in directly through the mesh. The opposing side is the fabric, which this I had questions about because I don't have any experience testing cases with fabric on them, so I don't know how you evaluate porosity, but the consideration would be I guess the integrity of the fabric itself as it's getting handled versus how breathable is it. And so probably one of the things we will do, which I'm sure will deeply sadden Fractal, is skin the case and test it without the fabric as well, because I'm just curious about how it'll perform. So some quick stats on it. The price is supposed to be $150. That includes the fan. There is a support for 110 millimeter CPU coolers, which I haven't looked up the spec, but I'm told that should be an NHD9L, I think it is, from Fractal, in terms of what can fit. Last thing for cooler support. So this drive cage can be removed to accommodate up to a 280, and I think that covers the cooling option. Beyond that, I guess the only thing I really wanted to point out was some of the intentional design on the actual slide mechanism, where you can see here, so it's got this kind of angled piece at the top. It is a metal interior structure that slides on plastic. And then they've got Mylar tape in a couple places. Actually, this is one of them, which Fractal's designer was explaining to me is to help reduce or prevent the chance of the exterior frame sticking on the interior chassis. So I think that more or less covers it for this case. The feet were included in the volume measurement I was given, which is great because at 20.4 liters, Fractal could play stupid games and get stupid prizes by saying it is less than 20 liters if they removed the feet. The problem that we've been kind of pushing, especially with Lian Li, is that if you discount the feet from the measurement, then we are going to start removing them when we test the cases, which will hurt the thermal performance. So we're going to make sure they're included one way or the other, especially when it's a key component of the case. So this is the Era 2. This is a follow-up to the original Era that Fractal launched. We didn't cover the cases back then. Apparently they had some thermal issues with them, but this is an 18.9 liter case. It is supposed to be launching in Q3. It's $200, comes with two 120 millimeter fans in the basement, has an included PCIe Gen 4 riser, and it's using anodized aluminum for the outside. There's also a spine that's kind of Terra style in the center with up to 3 total adjustable locations, but you can also settle it somewhere in between. And then the most interesting aspects of it are also mechanical like the other case. So mechanically, well, that's one of them, but the other ones, there's this filter or lockdown here, which we'll just pull, and that unlocks the chassis, so I'll leave that there. This can now pull up like that, kind of like the other, same concept as the other one. The wood panel, as you saw, has you can just kind of depress it over there, pops up, and that brings me to a point I was curious about, which Fractal kept talking about certifications for the wood without further clarification, and my question was, what does that mean? I don't know what 3-letter agencies do normally. So there is actually something relevant to it beyond traceability of the wood for function. And the functional side is that I guess the wood choices can be tested for if they've been treated to resist things like cracking over time. So especially if if it has moisture in it or something like that, over time, my understanding is that it can crack. It makes sense. The steel structure here, aside from the treatment certification, the steel structure is supposed to reinforce the wood to help prevent that aging effect. You can see they've screwed it in several places. I guess it would stiffen it, maybe prevent if it bends or warps at all over time, but I'm not an expert on fine woods. You'd have to ask Lian Li's founder about that. There are 2 other quick mechanical features as well. So the top panel can be completely removed by pushing these 2 tabs on the top of the case. And then on the bottom of the case, the dust filter is chamfered, which Fractal says is supposed to increase the surface area for the fans to pull air in. We'd have to test in an AB with a completely flat bottom to really see the impact of that, but conceptually it kind of makes sense. So for cooling, again, it's got the 2 120s in the bottom for intake, and then it can also support a 280 in theory. It depends on the pump block size and also the actual width of the configuration. For metals, the steel motherboard tray is about 2 millimeters thick. It can move 15 millimeters side to side, and then the aluminum exterior is 2 to 3 millimeters thick. And then for the slide, they're going with a plastic on plastic slide. So actually in here you can see that this section of the case is plastic, and as is the corner, same for the other side. I asked about that. The reasoning is, at least for this case, not the other one, but to prevent a metal on metal. And I mean, if you think of just in terms of material hardness, the hardest material wins. So if they're both the same, then that's gonna be better. Anyway, that's the cases. We're interested in both of them. I think we're probably gonna spend the most time testing the one over there. And then for the other stuff that Fractal has, not really gonna spend any time on it, but there is a $500-ish chair that's coming out. It is in the office chair variation. They have a couple different colors and materials and things like that, but you know, maybe this is a later thing. I don't know that we're gonna review any chairs. The Scape headphones, you'll have to go watch someone else for. We don't really do audio. I guess I'll just say that they have a magnetic base for inductive charging, and that's about all I really care to say about that. So cases are the most interesting for us, and then the Raspberry Pi MP3 player. And other than that, that's Fractal's booth at Computex 2024. So check back for all the other coverage. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more, and we'll see you all next time.